that when Square Enix contacted us again to talk about this project, what really excited me the most was really this was purely for education. I never knew, what sort of things existed 3 million years ago, and how can we put our visual effects knowledge into that academic project. Before we started to build the environment, we sort of had to know how big is the environment needs to be. The good thing was we had a fairly solid previs done beforehand, and we actually colored the ground per distance. From this color on, we almost not gonna see, or it can be just the environment dome sphere that it's painted at one time. So general process would be we only deal with the point, like the location of the things where it needs to be, and the orientation of the things. And then once you define that, we use this something called instancer to instance a tree on top of the points, or the bush on top of the points, or the grass on top of the points. Then you could change the scale or orientations or the type of things or the movement on the fly. If the client says, oh, this actually type of the plant's not discovered, so we cannot use it, then it's easy enough to change for us. Basically, it makes the process dynamic.
So after we established our generic ape topology that we use for both male and female, and also between the two different species of apes, we started to work in parallel between build and texture.
Still had to stick really close to the reference from the client because they had scienced it, so to speak. We followed that as close as we could, and then Marco and I worked together to get the skin detail, like all of the fine wrinkles around the eyes.
So network side did have a scientist who has driven the show, and not that so much on creatively or like action wise, but it's more about what we know today that existed 3 million years ago.
There's been a lot of research focusing on what we use in our human speech. We use like the FACS system in our facial rig, which is basically comprised of these certain shapes that create different sounds when we do speak, and different emotions as well. These scientific studies that went and developed the same sort of FACS system but for chimpanzees. So we basically read up on these research papers to try to find all the different relatable facts that we can kind of steal from our human face rig system and apply it to a chimpanzee, or what would be a chimpanzee, which was the closest relatable animal that we would use for the reference for our hapless and afferensis characters.
From what I learned, a lot of scientists actually work on the models, so they were quite accurately scientifically correct. So we were quite trying to be rigidly in this kind of shape and stay there.
Our approach to compositing was pretty straightforward for the show. We received CG renders for sort of the foreground, midground layers, and then everything sort of in the far distance was all done by DMP. What we did to add value to the show and make things more organic is we added a lot of elements, we added a lot of dust, just things blowing around in the distance. We added a lot of sort of heat distortion and chromatic aberration, and mostly because it's in the desert, we added CG bugs and flies sort of flying around. The goal was mostly to add any sort of elements to the shot that are just going to make it feel more like an organic environment.
Because of our past relationship with them, with the Kingsglaive project, so they're pretty much, okay, we know you guys can deliver, so, show us the animation, show us the action scene that matters, but the rest, go for it, be creative and do some fun. I rely on the same method to all the artists who work on the show. Hey, you have fun, you want to do something cool, then go for it. We didn't really limit the artists. Very much of collaboration like we had on Kingsglaive.